If it's undercovered, underreported, or a waste of time, you can be sure we'll be heard. Nothing is off limits.
Welcome to Broad Street Radio.
Welcome to Broad Street Radio. I'm Michael Morris. Sitting in with me again, my good friend, Joseph Esquire Reiner. Is Esquire your middle name, or do you just put that at the end?
It is my middle name, yes.
What is your middle name?
My middle name is F.
F?
Yeah.
The police?
Yes, F the police.
Are we allowed to say that anymore? It seems like people don't like the cops.
I mean, some people, I guess, don't like the cops or have never liked the cops, but it is a great album. I mean, so we just have to, don't we just start there? I mean,
I think we do.
First. And
well, today is going to be a day where we're going to talk about historic things and old man things. And I'm glad that you brought up F the police, because this show is brought to you by the Akron Police Department. What I'd like to say, well, there's going to be 9 new job openings. According to somebody else, there's 8.
It's 8 or 9.
It doesn't matter. Either way, things are not good there. But let's talk about something worse.
Are you going to take a shot?
Take a shot? No, we don't drink on this show.
Oh. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Also brought to you by Don Julio Tequila.
That's what Don Julio right here.
And Smith & Wesson.
A sip of my Don Julio.
I want to ask you this because you're an avid jock sniffer.
I am.
You played the football in high school.
Nate. I thought you were awake. I apologize when I was sniffing. Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know why you're sniffing in the back like you're a coonhound or something.
Well,
actually, we can't say hound.
Don't say that, please.
I wanted to ask this question to you, is that you and I, while we don't talk on the phone a lot, we constantly are messaging. And with the breaking news that USC was going to join the Big Ten, and we know this is all about money.
Stop it. Stop it right there, Michael Morris.
I would just throw that out, that conspiracy theory, but here's what I learned.
Stop it right there.
If USC and UCLA did not join the Big Ten, some Pac-12 schools were going to get rid of athletics altogether because they're running a deficit just to have the football team, the basketball team, and all that.
Okay.
But you're an avid Ohio State guy. How do you feel about the fact that the thing that existed for 100 years, where you want to play USC in the Rose Bowl for all the marbles, that's going to get wiped out now?
Well, it's been dying a slow death here a little bit recently anyway, but yes, I mean, that's definitely kind of where we're at. Is there even going to be a Rose Bowl? That was always kind of the pinnacle to go to the Rose Bowl and usually play USC. I know that hasn't happened in about 30 years, but yeah, it's just going to be a lot different. It's fluid. Not the gender fluidity you were talking about
Ellen Page
earlier.
Is fluid.
Yes.
She is Washington State.
Yeah, this is conference fluidity. So
right.
I'm not sure what USC's dead name is.
Explain the dead name. In case someone's listening and thinks that explain what that means, because we saw that on Twitter the other day and you posted it on Facebook. And I literally was going to say hugs and prayers for the loss of Ellen Page, because I didn't understand what was going on.
And I had not heard this term. So dead name is like if we said Bruce Jenner. That's if you referred to Caitlyn Jenner as Bruce Jenner, you would be referring to
them
dead name.
Ah.
And so it's kind of just, I guess, erasing that identity. So it's offensive to refer to them as their previous identity.
Do you think that the fact that Bruce Jenner killed a person in a motor vehicle and then became Caitlyn, that there's 2 dead names there?
Didn't he also kill O.J. Simpson's wife or something? Wasn't there some?
No, he was friends with him.
Kardashian. Oh.
That was Robert Kardashian.
Oh, that's right. And so then Bruce Jenner, dead name.
Yep.
Was the stepdad of Khloe Kardashian
and Kyrie Irving,
Simpson's daughter.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yes.
I've got it.
The big one.
We need a flow chart.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're going to have the green screen, because at some point we're going to put that. It'll just be all the Kardashians with name, rank, serial number.
We're also going to do the weather, going back to your WGCH days. We're going to do the weather back here.
Do
you have a felt sun and a felt cloud that we can put up there?
Can I tell you how pissed off I am? I thought about this the other day. When we're in high school, and we're talking about almost 30 years ago, I didn't get selected to be on that stupid TV show that aired during first period that you were forced to watch. I wasn't deemed good enough to do that. So I had to wait almost 30 years to do this. And now I understand why I wasn't chosen.
It's becoming more clear. I think you really pissed Miss Hughes off in ninth grade English. And
She didn't see any future of me doing broadcasting.
Yes.
And what are those other people doing? Nothing.
No. That weather career for whoever the hell that was.
They had a sports reporter, and I think that guy's a roofer now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
And the other guy, the lead lady on it, is married to a guy that sells eyeglasses.
That's true.
So she could have stunted my growth, but I didn't give up.
She could have. She could have. I think you were duped at that point.
Well, I've been duped a lot lately.
Duplicity.
Do you feel toxicity? Do you feel that you will watch college football less now that you, like, we always knew the guys were getting paid, right? There's no, all the talented guys didn't just go to Alabama for the education, right? So now that you know they're getting paid, does that make you feel differently about what you're watching?
Well, I've been shooing the youngsters off my lawn for quite some time now, but I think we talked about this before as far as getting paid, and in the Miami, Florida, who's just that's a college football juggernaut right now. They just paid their
$9 million.
$9 million
for a high school kid.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I can't wait till they go 5 and 6 or something, and they go sound investment.
Right. And they're already playing football on that, rug that, I rolled out in my bedroom, and when I was like 10 years old, I had like the Ohio State field on it or whatever.
Thank God it wasn't your bed sheets from when you were 15.
Right. And still haven't gotten the stains out of those. Thank you, Michael Morris. But anyway, I think it's just a different landscape. And a friend I talked to a lot about these things. He's a big Ohio State fan. I don't know if I'm being pushed out of the market. I guess you just, the purse, I carry one, will
it's called a man bag.
It's European. We'll kind of determine that a little bit, but I think the product is taking a hit, in my opinion.
I'm glad that you said it that way, because don't you think that now what we're watching is manufactured horse shit? Like, it's all about somebody else getting money, and so we already understand that. But this does sound like an old man thing to say, but when you throw out hundreds of years of tradition because it makes more money, it's almost like you're watching movies now, and you're like, 9 out of 10 movies suck, but I'm still going to go because I like to watch the movies. I'm not as invested. I would think it would be like, I like Alabama football. I know when they play Vanderbilt that is a cupcake game. It doesn't matter. But when they play Georgia or they play Auburn or something, there's tradition there. Mm-hmm. If all of a sudden they're playing Oregon State and that's on the schedule, that means absolutely nothing to me. Do you know what I mean? It waters down what we were watching, and I think it is, you pass things down generationally to your kids. So, like my daughter and I, if it's Alabama Auburn, we're going to watch Ohio State Michigan, but we're going to watch Alabama Auburn, and nobody better call while we're doing it, right? Now, it doesn't mean as much if you're going to add all these other teams with no history. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, well, I think that might cut a couple different ways, because one of the criticisms I've had in the last 20 years or so are the Ohio State Akron games, the Ohio State Florida A&M games. You have a finite number of games you can play, 10, 12 regular season games. 4 or 5 of them are just, I don't even turn the TV on a lot of the time, especially those early season.
When they play like Bowling Green or something.
Not even turn it. I mean, maybe I'm like walking through the room. Maybe I'll get dressed that day, whatever. But I'm not really watching that. So I think maybe one silver lining would be to actually play actual other big boy schools and have a more representative product weekly. But I mean, we're watering it down. The Big Ten's not the Big Ten anymore.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then.
Okay.
So you take Akron out, and now you have to play USC, and USC is getting a bunch of recruits to come there now, and now you're going to play them week 1.
Okay.
Are you just as pissed if they lose week 1? Remember, I think it was like 10, 15 years ago, they played USC in USC, and then they came, and USC came here.
We lost them both, yes.
Well, when I was so I didn't go into the stadium because that's not where the alcohol is.
Right.
And I was.
Well, it is now. But.
Yes, but I was laying in a field, and when the game was over.
Is that why you weren't answering your mother's phone calls?
Yeah. And then I told her the next day, I was knitting. But
yes.
When people were coming out of the stadium, they were irate that Ohio State lost this game because, again, if you lost one game in college football back then, it meant a lot more because you'd go, say, from number 2 to number 8, and you'd have to work your way to get back in the top. Back then, it would have been in the top 2. Now, if you're in the college playoff system, which that's going to be all thrown out of whack, it does. I don't think it means as much if you lose 2 games. It's almost like you can win the NFC East by winning 10 games.
Right. Well, I think that actually might be a silver lining too, because when you have, I know we're used to in college football that if you have 1 loss, it's just like you said, like the world's ending, and you might not make the playoff or whatever. But now maybe with 2 or 3 losses, you can, because there's more teams and they're playing one another. It's more of kind of a round robin, and that seems to make more sense to me. Where you have 1 blip, you can't really, get back in, especially when there's only like 4 teams and maybe more than that. Hopefully, if they go to like the 64 team super conference, or somebody was kind of supposing the other day on the radio, like, is it going to be the SEC versus the Big Ten? Is that like the national championship every year? So that yeah, I guess we'd have to wait a couple of years to see how that works out.
But how would you like to be Cincinnati today?
Well, Cincinnati, I think, needs to, and I think it's viable that they could join a big boy conference.
So let's say that they do. Mm-hmm. You're going to compete with the same money that Ohio State, and so it's not just the other conference. The teams come from other conferences, because USC is going to get all that LA, all the West Coast kids are going to, now they can stay there because you're still playing in the Big Ten. You're going to be on TV all the time versus Pac-12 games. Most time they started at 10 o'clock.
Right.
So you're not getting seen as much as you are if you went to Iowa or Wisconsin, you're playing at Ohio State. But Cincinnati's going to have to compete with them, meaning you're going to have to bring in professional fundraisers to get money to compete. That's why last year I think was such a cool thing, because Cincinnati, before all this flips, got in the Big Four. Now, they didn't deserve to get there, and they got their ass handed to them.
Right.
But at least they were there. That may be the last time a Cincinnati, or I'm trying to think of other teams, like Akron's not a good example, but like OU during the 90s had
Central Florida. Is that what
Central Florida is another example. Yeah. How are they going to compete? Because you're going to have to join these conferences. Yeah. Or like the Big 12. It's over for them. They're losing Arkansas. They're losing Oklahoma. They're going to lose those teams to the SEC. What relevance is it to be at any of those schools, SMU, Houston, or that? Because you're never going to get in a bowl game now. What kid is going to want to go there?
Yeah, I think that's just how the landscape's going to develop, and it's kind of remains to be seen. I did actually hear that the Big 12 was trying to get a handful of the Pac-12 teams, so they're just going to
they're going to get the ones that nobody else wants.
Nobody else wanted. We didn't want. Well, I think they're trying for like Oregon. But
what's the line in Hot Shots where he said you're the best of what's left?
Yes, you're the best of what's left. I want to go back to that USC game, because that I love Jim Tressel. That game was 15-10 at halftime, and this dude nurses a 5-point lead by punting the ball for an entire half.
No, you can swear on this show.
Flipping
better.
Half.
I'm glad you brought it.
He nurses this for an entire half. Like, what could go wrong? I don't know. You have one of the best offenses in history, but 5 points that'll hold up. And of course, they scored like 30 seconds ago to, win by a couple of points. But so that's probably why people are so pissed off with the Tressel ball.
Well, when you look back on those coaches, so like remember when we were in high school, Notre Dame you'd have all those, let's just say chodes that we went to school with that would wear the Notre Dame stuff because they're going to be undefeated, and they would play Air Force and Army, the Salvation Army. They played nobodies, and then they play like Florida State. So if they beat Florida State, they're in a national title game. How many of those coaches have like 90% winning percentages or 87% and they played nobody? It's not going to be that way. So I look at the Sabans and the guy at Georgia. What's your record really going to be when you have to play legit competition every single week?
But I think that's the silver lining. I think that's a good part about it. Like, I want to see good games every week. I mean, every once in a while, if there's Ohio State should have like one Akron, not 3 or 4.
Right.
And then you right in the Big Ten, you've got a couple with Maryland and Indiana and.
But see,
Rutgers
those people, they should boot them out, and I think that's going to happen because if you have the Big Ten really has 16 teams in it already.
Yes.
You're going to have to say to Maryland, which Maryland only exists because of the money they get paid by Michigan, Ohio State to get their ass kicked.
Right.
And to be part of the Big Ten network. They get revenue share from that. If they're not in there, they won't have a football team because they don't have, like, no one cares about them anyway.
Right.
So if you push them out to add USC and UCLA, which makes it better for the Big Ten network, revenue wise, because now you're adding the LA market. I don't think these schools realize, like, some of you are getting tossed out. I think Iowa's looking at like, this is great for us. No, it's not. You're going to be in the Big 12 because we don't need you.
Yeah.
And there is that Ohio State rivalry with Iowa, with Michigan. And I think because we're in the Midwest, I think those things mean something to us. It doesn't mean as much if I get to see USC every single year.
No, I agree 100% with that. I would go back to even when they did the two divisions, and I know they've been doing that for 30 years, going back to the SEC. And I think when they got so big that you had to do two divisions, going back to my point earlier, is, you know, you have 3 or 4 throwaway games when you have a Big Ten and you don't play a few teams in your own league for 3 or 4 years, but then you get like a rematch in a conference championship game. Like I just think, you know, that's ridiculous. That they're going to do Ohio State, Michigan a few years ago,
right?
And
but you have the conference championship game, and then you're going to meet the national title anyway,
right? Yeah,
which is a super weird thing, but it just always works out that way.
Yeah, I think they call that the SEC. I think that's the way they do that.
But don't you think that there is a difference in style of play? So it's not like when we were younger. If you watched NBA basketball on the East Coast, they were beating each other up. It was a more rough and tumble game, and then on the West Coast, they just ran constantly.
Right.
So there was a difference in style of play. I think when you bring teams from the West Coast where they're throwing the ball a lot more, they don't run as much. They're 5-minute, kind of like Ohio State's offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason Ohio State is so dominant is Iowa, Wisconsin, those other teams cannot recruit the same types of people.
Right.
So it's like in boxing, styles make fights. The same thing in football. But if everybody goes that style of football, I think it gets watered down to where you're just kind of like, oh, okay, this is what we're going to watch every single week. It's NASCAR. Everybody's turning left.
Fluidity,
gender fluidity. Yes.
Yes. Conference fluidity, football fluidity, all the fluidity. That's where we're at.
How do your son is how old?
22.
Have you talked to him about this? Because I'm sure he grew up in a Ohio State household.
About fluidity?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Does he feel good about it? He's on the swim team, isn't he?
He is.
The women's swim team?
Yes, he's on the swim team, and he just won the national championship. I don't like to brag.
Yeah. Well,
and it's actually 12-year-old.
It actually gives
12-year-old.
It gives credence to the fact he's been shaving his legs since he was 12.
Yes, I mean,
I think it's weird he does it when people come over, but whatever he wants to do.
And that literally makes him more fluid.
Shout out to Dom, by the way. He's never going to listen to this because
he won't.
He'll be in prison.
I mean, I've told him I'm doing a podcast, and he thinks that's pretty cool. And then it was a dream I had. I didn't actually have a conversation with him about the podcast.
What is the last cool conversation you've had with your son?
We do have a lot of cool conversations. What would it be about? Maybe ham and cheese sandwiches. I think he likes.
So he's well versed. He's a chef.
He's well versed. Yes, he's in the landscape. What did they call it in Breakfast Club? The janitorial arts when he was talking. So he's in the maybe it'd be like the arborist arts, cutting down trees and stuff.
I think that's when somebody burns a building.
That is. That's an arborist, I think.
Yeah.
Arborer.
It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
I just go in like real rich neighborhoods and I throw cigarettes in there.
You should. The most famous one was Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Do you know that was an inside job? Did you want to talk about that?
Pearl Harbor? What?
Yeah.
The movie? Was this Ben Affleck?
No, that movie is horrible.
You didn't have 8 hours to stab your eyes out?
I had a gal say, I have a copy of the movie Pearl Harbor. Would you like to watch it? And I immediately said, I can never talk to you again. I saw the first 5 minutes. I'm like, this is terrible.
I don't believe you were talking to a woman. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, not anymore. Not to that one.
No, that was it.
I had a conversation with one yesterday.
Burn that bridge.
Yeah.
Really?
And I said, can I get my receipt? And I left and I was fine.
You wanted a receipt for donuts?
For dancing.
For dancing.
You can write it off. If you're a Wall Street trader, you can write that off. Did you know that?
I did not know
So like
that.
if I'm taking you to a business lunch, that's why the receipts, shout out to all the kids that need to know this. If you go to a establishment such as this, the receipt doesn't ever say the name of the place you're in. It just says like Fun Times Unlimited or whatever, and you can write that off.
Is that like the 4 orders of macaroni and cheese bites we're going to get after the show?
Absolutely.
Michael Morris is writing that off.
We're going to sit at Roosters. We're going to write off all that mac and cheese. Nate, you're welcome to come as long as you pay.
Yes.
So your opinion though is like, college football season is right around the corner, and it's my favorite thing. When I was younger, it would have been watching NFL, but college football to me, there's just something about it. I think as I'm getting older, I like to see the enthusiasm of these younger kids. You know what I mean? Because we were all 20 some years old at one time, and I'm sure you had dreams when you were playing high school football that you get to play at the next level or go to the pros or whatever. But unfortunately, you're an untalented slob. Fair?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's overly fair. That was actually generous.
I will say,
that
in the era of high school football that we lived in, a shutdown quarter was just, they're going to throw the ball 5 times a game. Fair to say?
I think that is.
Maybe that was just where we grew up.
That is. I mean, that's why I think we talked about this, that the split ends on our football team, some of them might be wrestling us. I don't know, not under the table, I guess. But
can we point out that we did have one of the fastest white people on the planet at one time that went to our high school? I mean, this kid was a freak athlete.
Yes.
And so they couldn't get the ball to him. So they said, let's have this 6'3" frail track star run the ball. And that guy literally never touched a football after that, went into the Navy and said, I'd rather do this than play football anymore.
My favorite part is that you said he went into the Navy, not the Army, and he's
No, he's
there's
a
going to
Navy.
be a knock. No,
I saw him at the reunion.
Navy?
He is truly
Army.
a seaman.
Okay.
He works in somewhere in the Navy. Like, what's the building?
The Pentagon?
What's the building that all the people on the January 6th were climbing?
Was that the Capitol?
It could have been the capital of DC. I believe it's Baltimore.
It was. It was the capital. It was Capital University, actually.
He could have gone to Capital University and been a running back there. Point being that we just saw him at the reunion, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes.
He's still fast. I challenged him in the hallway.
Right. You gave him.
Yeah.
He gave you a head start, and
Yeah.
No, we only had we had a fine team we had a rotation of about 8 tailbacks. I think at some point, like I slipped in there and they didn't even know it, and it's pretty much the same result as everyone else. So, yeah, it was fun.
Were you ever a captain? We're running out of time, but I got to know if you were ever a captain for a game.
No, I don't think so. It's captain
you
of
wanna
the
write
wrestling
that
team,
wrong?
but there's only 2 of us on the team.
You have 1 year of eligibility left.
I have one. Do I have a year
You
left
get
for football?
in college. You get 5 years to play 4. I assume that you at 40-some years old could go back.
But it took me 7 years to graduate undergrad. So
Yeah, but you didn't play.
That's true. That's why I don't have all 5 then.
Did you get a doctorate from high school? Is that what you're saying?
I did get a doctorate from high school. I've got to go back to you besmirched Maryland football earlier, and I have a problem with that. Like,
in half an hour, that's
like a football team with a turtle as a mascot. I mean, that is I'm on board. I'm fully on board with that.
I'm glad that they've been there for 10 or 12 years, and you finally have decided that you're going to ride.
Turtle.
You're going to ride that horse.
Sea turtle? Can it go on land? Is this like Aquaman? Can he?
All
go
turtles
on land?
can go on land.
Why does Aquaman have like a boat?
Why does he have a boat?
Doesn't he have like the boat?
Because he's an
vehicle?
avid sportsman.
Okay,
You can't fish and not have a boat.
that's true. He is an expert fisherman.
Yeah. Brought to you by Gander Mountain. We will see you next week.